The boroughs are New York City. The burbs are everywhere else. Real estate is the ultimate game of risk and reward. It's the biggest investment most people ever make. Fortunes are made over a lifetime and lost in a day. And we're not playing with monopoly money. How do you stay ahead? Who's buying? Who's selling? And why? What do they know? We want the truth. You need an edge. Boroughs and Burbs is your secret weapon, giving you the insider knowledge and strategies you need to succeed in the high-stakes world of real estate. From Palm Beach to Palm Springs, Manhattan to Malibu, we press the experts to expose the pain, find the deals, and occasionally predict the future. That's Boroughs and Burbs, Thursdays, 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. Because everyone can make money in real estate.
Welcome, everybody. Boroughs and Burbs, episode 168. This week, we're doing Vermont. I am your host, John Engel, and I'm in Connecticut. Let's see if I can find me. There I am. You can find me at theengelteam.com or at the Elliman.com website. So that's John Engel. I'm joined by my co-host, Roberto Cabrera. You'll find him at robertocabrera.com or at the Brown Harris Stevens website. This is his newest monthly newsletter where he tells us we've got to seize the market you're in. And if you want to know what that means, well, you got to go to robertocabrera.com and find out more. Hey, Roberto, how's it going?
Hello, my friend. Good to see you. I'm here in Upper West Side of Manhattan. Very excited to go into even a colder place than New York. And we're going to go to Vermont.
And what's the weather right now in Upper West Side of Manhattan?
I think it's 15 degrees. It was 15 degrees. It was weird because it was 15 degrees this morning, but it felt like 16. So I guess there was a warm breeze. It's 21 right now.
Well, I'm sure all right. So I also, before I forget, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Grace Farms. You'll find them at gracefarms.org, 80 acres in New Canaan. And they've got concerts. They've got a great tea house. You can just stop in and have a cup of tea. There's a library right there in the center that we're looking at, center of the Ribbon building. So please check out gracefarms.org and come visit if you're in the area. I'd like to start with my first guest. Let's see. Where is she? Wait, Mia is, wait, I had the wrong. There we go. Mia Parsons. She's an agent with Douglas Elliman, and she covers Vermont. And we're going to talk to her about her listings and the market in general. I'd like to also introduce Norm Frates with Mascoma Bank, and he's been banking and offering mortgages in Vermont for a very long time. So he's got a good perspective on the entire state. And we're going to talk about the entire state of Vermont today. Without further ado, welcome, Mia. Welcome, Norm. How's it going?
Going great. Thank you so much for having us.
How long have you been an agent with Elliman or generally?
So I was licensed in 2014, and I was with Telus Properties, actually in the California market. You may know Peter Hernandez, president of Douglas Elliman Western Region. So I worked with him, and then Douglas Elliman acquired us. 2016-17 is when the acquisition happened.
I talked to Peter Hernandez yesterday afternoon, and I said, "How's it going in LA, Peter?" And he said, and I remember two facts. He said, Los Angeles, we had 13,000 sales last year in the Los Angeles market. And he said, and we just lost 12,000 homes. I think that number might even be higher now, but just to give you a perspective on how big an impact the fires have been on the LA market, they equal the entire LA transaction market of last year. So pretty devastating out there. I love Peter, big fan of Peter Hernandez.
He's been on our program.
Yes, we've had Peter talking about surfing, telling surfing stories and a little bit of real estate, you know.
A lot of fitness.
Indeed.
Yeah, so I was in the San Diego market, and then COVID hit, and decided to make some life changes. All my family is between Vermont and Boston, and so decided to come home. So I joined the Douglas Elliman Park Plaza office in downtown Boston, and encourage them to get their brokerage in Vermont. So we did it just about 2 years ago. I would say maybe more like a year and a half, and kind of officially launched it just in the last 6 months, with Vermont actually being on our website, and actually being able to use the Elliman resources for our beautiful state of Vermont. So, yeah.
Awesome. And Norm, you're at the Mascoma Bank. Tell us about how you got there, and what do you do?
So I've actually been in the mortgage lending business for the last 35 years, and I have been with Mascoma Bank for the last 13 years. And it's a community bank. It's actually a mutual bank. We have 32 branches. We're in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Real community bank. We give back to all of the communities that we do business in. I think last year we gave over $2.5 million to all these communities. Great lending source. We do a lot of portfolio lending, a lot of secondary market lending.
And I would imagine, doing this for 35 years, you've seen quite a change in Vermont. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that for a very long time it was the dominant industry in Vermont are two. You either commute out of Boston, you live in Vermont and commute down to Boston, or you work in the ski industry, or I'm going to think in the university industry, colleges and the university. Are those the major industries of Vermont that, that draw people to Vermont?
Yeah. So overall, tourism is probably 40 to 50% of our entire business in the state of Vermont. We have a lot of great claim to fame. You've heard of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. We have the second largest microbreweries at per capita in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So we have good beer. It's all because we have great water. Our ski industry is, continues to grow because we really have mastered snowmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And all those resorts are really thriving right now. I work in specifically Stowe, the Killington market, and the Okemo market. That's kind of that's where I have a huge referral network.
Can I ask you a question? Just because I'm from the East Coast, a little bit from the Northeast for that matter. Vermont, New Hampshire. It's like kind of like Boardwalk and Park Place. They kind of go together. Why Vermont over New Hampshire? Like let's say, I would love to get a place up in New England, somewhere in Vermont, New Hampshire. What's the not necessarily the sales pitch, but what's the difference?
So my feeling is that Vermont has made a statement for many, many years that, first of all, we don't have billboards. We do not allow any billboards, any signage on the roads. We also very, very strict with development. So you're going to drive through the countryside. You're not going to see billboards. You're going to see larger parcels of property, beautiful landscapes, and beautiful covered bridges.
That's right. Where it is right now.
Yeah. And, I love New Hampshire, but I love Vermont better. And I think a lot of people do. I think they just feel that country home feel. The mountains, our Green Mountains are just beautiful.
Is there anything, just curious, is there anything where you might run into somebody, but like those people are definitely from New Hampshire because they are something? They are, like a New Yorker would say, those people are from New Jersey because they're terrible drivers, or they're,
No, we're very friendly with the New Hampshire folks, even though it does say "live free or die" on their license plate.
Fair. Okay.
Does everything look like this in Vermont, or is this, do I have to seek out, are these just, a few spots of picturesque beauty?
You can just get in the car and drive around and find all of these views.
Well,
I'm a little partial to the central part of Vermont, our Windsor County and Orange County. They're just absolutely spectacular properties.
Windsor County Okay, wait, we got to get to our maps. So here's our county map. So you just said Windsor County, and that's here to the east. And what was the other?
Orange County, which is north there.
Okay. And what's so special about Windsor and Orange counties?
I just think that a lot of the properties have larger acreages. They just have some picturesque villages, little town halls, little churches, little general stores. It just seems to be a huge attraction. Now, all over Vermont, you're going to find those views and those little towns. I'm just a little partial to it. Plus, that's kind of my main market. Is Windsor and Orange County.
Where are the largest cities in the state in that specific spot?
No, Burlington is the largest, and then you've got Bennington and Rutland.
And they're up here.
Burlington's up top, up on the upper, up in there. Keep going.
That's where University of Vermont is. Is that
that's where
right?
University of Vermont is? That's where our Fletcher Allen Hospital is. Although we side because we're so close to New Hampshire. All of our services go to the Dartmouth Hitchcock, which is in Hanover, New Hampshire, in Lebanon, New Hampshire.
So there's Burlington, and it's on the lake.
It's on Lake Champlain.
What's the major reason to go to Burlington?
Well, the lake is a big draw. It's, as cities go, you guys have to remember there's 675,000 people in the entire state of Vermont. So that's a small town in Massachusetts, but the lake is really attractive. The city is really eclectic. It's artisan. It's got a Church Street, which is a closed cobblestone street that has shops and restaurants and entertainment areas, and that's the draw. And the college, there's 3 colleges right in Burlington, and actually a couple of colleges just on the outside of Burlington.
Give me a sense of size. Like if I were to drive from the southern border to the northern border, that would take me how long?
That will take you depends, but if you're going from the Massachusetts border to the Canadian border, you're probably going to be 3 hours.
Okay.
And it takes you an hour and a half to go from east to west.
So just like Mia went during COVID and rediscovered Vermont during COVID, I actually have some friends here in New Canaan who during COVID went up there, probably most people go up on a vacation. They maybe to ski. They fall in love with it, and they say, we could do this. The prices are reasonable. It's not too far to get to. I can get to Vermont from Connecticut in probably 4 hours, and it probably would be 2.5 hours out of Boston. So they fall in love with it. And in this case, my friend in New Canaan, a banker in New York, took his 6 kids and he bought a place, an old farmhouse on 300 acres in Vermont. And I think a lot of people must have done that, particularly during COVID. Is that typically what happens? They fall in love on a ski trip and then they say, we should buy a place up here.
So that's always been the case in our area, that people fall in love with the place. They come here for a wedding, or we have in Woodstock, we have this beautiful resort, Woodstock Resort, the Woodstock Inn, which is famous. And people come up and they spend a weekend and they go, oh my gosh, we have this Currier and Ives village, and they just say, I want to be part of this. Let's buy it. This been over the years. The migration, I call it the migration, the pandemic migration. During COVID, it was crazy. The values of our property in 6 months went up almost 40%. It was just a crazy migration. And I have got tons of stories where you talk to this couple, and they live in this 3rd floor high rise in Boston. They are now all working from home. They have 3 kids and 2 dogs, and they have to go down the elevator to walk the dog. And they start thinking about, well, maybe we could, what could we get for this house or this condo? They could get $975 for that condo. What you could buy in Woodstock for $975 is a 25-acre house, 3,000 square feet. Your kids could be running around. You could let the dogs out the front door. I mean, that was the common story, whether it was New York, Boston, and a lot of the people purchased homes here. A lot of people that had second homes actually moved here because they already had a home, and they haven't left. They have figured it out now. Even some of them that are getting pushback to go to in company, they have to show back up at work. They're making that work. But we're seeing we actually in our little community here, we gained 75 new students in 1 year, which is, we usually gain 4 or 5. So
it was a true relocation as opposed to buying a second home.
Yeah, true relocation, and they're figuring out.
And I will say we are still seeing that. We've just had 2 transactions together that was the exact same story. They are sick of the traffic, sick of the hustle bustle, and one couple, I have to report to the office on Tuesdays. So they do the 2-hour drive, but their quality of life, they couldn't be happier with the change of pace now that they can work from home.
And these were people coming from Boston.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many people do you see coming from New York? A few less than Boston, or is it pretty equal?
Is less, I would say.
Yeah, I would say New York's less. I wouldn't say that it's 10 from Boston and 2 from New York. I would say somewhere around 5. It's the Boston, New York and surrounding area. We don't have traffic. We
Yeah.
they want to get out of that.
John, your friend who bought the house with 300 acres, was that a complete relocation or was that a second home? And like, what sort of budget did they have for that?
So they raised their kids in New Canaan, and during COVID, a lot of schools went to remote. Some of these kids age out and go off to college. So with a couple kids left, they went up there and they stayed in Vermont for during COVID. And I think the intent was it would just become a second home. Because for various reasons, they they rented out their place in New Canaan and moved to Baltimore, where where he had gone to school and where they had originally met. So now Vermont's quite a bit further, right? It's much more of a commitment. It's not something you can just leave and head on up and spend a long weekend. It's a bit more of a commitment from Baltimore. Another thing that's changing is, you tell me if I'm wrong, Roberto, but I think people are still wondering whether back to work is going to be enforced. A lot of the major banks are starting to say, we're going to insist upon it. It's in the wind this week that federal employees are going to have to be, going back to work. And people are wondering whether that's really going to stick and whether it's going to affect suburban markets like New Canaan and like the entire state of Vermont. So what do you think, Norm? What do you think, Mia? Or do you think back to work is affecting your clients, the ones who bought during COVID and thought that they could commute 1 day a week, 2 days a week down to to the headquarters?
I think they're making it work. It depends. If they have to go back 5 days a week, I don't know whether that makes sense to not go back to where they were living and use Vermont as a second home or sell.
But we haven't seen that yet, have we? It's not
seen it yet.
We still have, especially in our area, well, Woodstock, for example, we have 17 homes active right now in our small town. But prices are higher than ever because we have just no inventory. And, well, I think a big thing that we're discussing with our buyers is that Vermont made a huge legislative change with tax for when you purchase as a second home in the state of Vermont. It just became effective in August. It's now a 3% tax that's due at closing, 3.5%, sorry, that's due at closing, where it was more like 1.5%. And then interest rates obviously haven't come down.
And if it's a primary
As-
home, what's the tax?
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5%.
I have to tell you that rarely do I pull up a real estate market where all the houses are pretty. I mean, these are pretty houses. And you know what? A great variety. It's not like they're all of the same style either. I see Victorians with porches. I see Adirondack. I see ranches. I see barn-like, really interesting and varied architecture. There's a modern pending for 2.7, but then there's a modest house for 625. So looks like a range of price points and architectural styles.
Let's see
It
the
is.
luxury.
Our last year, I think average for the town of Woodstock was around $1 million. And that is condos, single family combined.
How many condos do you have?
Very, very few.
Not a lot.
Two.
Yeah, not a lot. The resort areas, they all have, a good group of condominiums throughout.
And a
But
lot of those are like second homes, right?
a lot of those are second homes. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about your listing here and take us through what kind of a house is this and who might it appeal to?
Yeah, I do. So for location, this is 6 minutes to Pico Mountain. I would say 15 to the base of Killington. Mendon is a neighboring town to Killington, and in between Killington and Rutland. Rutland, so I would say the buyer here would generally be more from the New York market because there is train and bus access from New York to Rutland. So from a commuting perspective, it's very easy coming from, if you're looking for a second home, coming from New York. Even though Killington is still a mix of Boston, New York, Connecticut. This is a 4-bedroom, 4-bath home. The sellers it was their primary residence. I've had a mix of showings between primary and second home. Mendon's an interesting town because it's school choice. So there is a Killington Mountain School is a very coveted ski school. You can actually get funding from the town to go to that school. I've actually had 2 showings that the kids were entertaining going that route. And that would give them a huge discount on the tuition for the next 4 years. This Adirondack room, I would say, is picture perfect Vermont. You just picture coming off the slopes and, social, having friends over, siblings, kids, whoever, in that room. Like I said,
Sorry, how far did you say this was from Killington?
15 to 20 minutes. I would say 17 minutes right to the base.
And the train from New York to there is about how long?
2:45.
Wow.
And that's 10 minutes away. Hospital very close in Rutland. I mean, this being 5 minutes to Rutland, you have everything there that you need. That's actually where I was born. There's a main hospital there, every grocery store, shop, store, mall, cinema you'd need, which other parts of Vermont, you don't have that close access to, quote unquote, city.
How many square feet is that house and how much land is it on?
It's just under an acre and it's 4,300 square feet.
And are there annual taxes on that house, I'm assuming?
They are 11,000.
That's good. It's good job.
So Woodstock is known for its high taxes, but that's also why it's such a coveted place to live.
So when my parents would go skiing a long time ago. They went up there and they would go to Mad River Glen and a lot of what I would say family-owned ski resorts. I think, and that was true even in the 80s when I was, beginning to learn to ski. I think in the last 10 years, I think Vermont has responded in a couple of ways to the fact that it was known as a winter playland. And they said, nope, we are now a four-season destination. And a lot of the ski resorts got big injections of capital, started building condos, and started developing their properties to be more a four-season market. Can you talk about that, Norm? Because you've been there for the whole 35-year run. And I think a lot of these resorts said, you know what, we don't want to be subject to the vagaries of the weather, and we're going to make our snow, we're going to make our luck up here in Vermont, and we're going to guarantee a good time. And with that, the restaurants came, the food got better, and things to do other than skiing got a lot better. Is that pretty accurate? When did that take place, and did it change during COVID?
No, I mean, I think it took place probably the end of the 90s. They all started to realize that, hey, we got something to market here. Our summers are beautiful. Our fall foliage is absolutely gorgeous. What really kind of changed some of the resorts is mountain biking and, that type of cross biking. They all became very popular in a lot of the ski areas. Designed bike routes, uphill, downhill. They opened the lifts. But yeah, they have, I would say, since the end of the 90s, every ski area has been taking stock and trying to market the four seasons. They have the housing base with all the condos and the single family residences in these resorts. And it's a huge rental market for that. And a lot of our customers, when they are not using their condo or their single family residence, they're renting their properties. And it's as busy in the summer around here and the fall than it is on the ski season.
Would you say that Airbnb phenomenon, the fact that if I come to you and I say, listen, can you find me $1 million condo or small house in the Mount Snow? I love to ski, and will I be able to recover some of the money back for the weeks, months that I'm not using it? I'm just a skier. I'm not interested in the other seasons. I'm busy. Can you rent it out? Is the fact that we now have Airbnb really transformed your market?
Airbnb has transformed all resort markets. It just made it so much easier to find a place to rent. The ease and customer service of trying to make it all happen. My customers are doing very, very well on Airbnb. They're able to cover their costs, their taxes, there's a lot of in all of these resort areas, and actually even in our own town, there are property management companies that help the owners with their rentals. But yeah, Airbnb has been a game changer.
From a lending perspective, do you view the primary residence versus someone who's going to do it as an investment or an Airbnb? Do you view that differently? Is there a slight differential in the rate?
Yeah, there is. It depends. If you're gonna buy it, your initial intention is you're buying it as a single family as a vacation home that you're going to use. As long as you're going to use it, we're okay with you renting it. If you're going to take that property and rent it 100% of the time, then that's going to be an investment property. You're going to get similar rates, but you're going to have some points involved. Basically, on our investment properties, you might get the same rate, but it might be a 2-point loan, or we could price the rate up enough so they wouldn't have the points. But there is a little bit of a difference in the product.
So the market has price appreciated quite a bit, but interest rates for the last essentially 3 years have really spiked and stalled a lot of deal activity everywhere. Is that happened there?
It's funny, we're still seeing a very active market even with these higher interest rates. I mean, we're at 7.25%, 7.125% right now for 30-year fixed. Everybody is a little more sophisticated, I think, that are buying these homes. They know, oh, well, I'll just refinance when the rates come back down. But we really want to have a vacation home in Killington, or we really want to have this vacation home, or we might want to move to Woodstock, but let's try it out. I'm getting a lot right now of people that are close to retirement. So they're buying this house. It's going to be a second home, but it's probably going to end up being a retirement house. But yeah, interest rates, I thought it was really going to be a shocker. We did see like a maybe 2 or 3 month slowdown. But since then, it's really been, we still have so little inventory. And that's again because of the interest rates, because, everybody's got that has these homes now probably have a 3%, 3.5% mortgage. They don't want to give that up. Until we start seeing our rates come down, I'm thinking probably in the high 5s. I think that'll drive inventory.
What about cash? Lots of cash deals.
So
Lots of cash deals. I lose a lot of deals to cash.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I hate
All the lenders that we speak to and have come to our offices and spoken, they're like, last year was really bad.
I think in New York, it's 2/3 of all deals are cash, but then a lot of those, in order to win them, and same thing here, same thing in Palm Beach. But I heard yesterday from a lender that a lot of those people, once they secure the property with an all cash deal, then they finance some portion of it. Are you finding that, Norm?
Yeah, that happens a lot. That happens a lot to me. And as long as they give us enough time to make it happen, we can't do a 15-day close or 25-day close, but yeah, we can usually make it happen in that period of time.
Now, some lenders that I see, that as long as you pull that money out within, let's say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you'll get the same rate as opposed to a refinance rate, which would be higher.
Yeah, you get the same rate.
Okay.
Same rate. Yep.
I was just going to say, in Woodstock last year, there were 43 closed transactions and 22 were cash.
Wow.
I hate those guys.
That's specific to Woodstock. If you did more rural outskirt towns, it wouldn't be that way.
And how about the price appreciation? In my market, I think Fairfield County, we saw price appreciation around 5%. And that was true in a town like New Canaan with an average price point of 2 million, and in Stamford next door, with an average price point of 1 million. With an average price point of 1 million, we saw higher price appreciation, maybe 10%, 15% in some of those markets. For the average price or median price went up. What are you seeing the market do in Vermont? Are you seeing 5% across the board?
Actually, I think last year was 12%, where the national average was 5-6.
Wow.
Yeah, 23, 24. I read an article that I think it was the highest appreciation state, actually.
So am I too late? Are there any deals left to be had? If I come up there and I say, come on, hook me up, Mia, you'll be like, okay, be patient, but deals do come up. I mean, it sounds like you're short inventory, but there's still possibilities coming up all the time.
For sure. And I think the other difference is, the affordability, just from the city to Vermont, it's going to be so much more affordable compared to what you're used to. Even so, Quechee is a 4-season resort town right near us where we do a lot of business. And
How do you spell Quechee?
Queechee.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah, well, actually, if you pull up the ski area map, you'll see where we are.
All right. So that's Quechee right there, and I could see.
Oh yeah, so
on
the zip code is Hartford. That's the confusing. So Quechee is a town within.
Okay.
So the MLS, won't necessarily specify, but so my example was just, you join a country club in New York or Boston, you might see 75,000 for the initiation fee. A place like Quechee, it's 7,900 for the first year.
Can I
So
point out that everything on the page under 459 is pending in contingent, or under 500 is pending in contingent, 399 contingent, 260 contingent, 375, 299. It
Yeah.
looks like people are scooping up properties at that $300,000 level as fast as they come on because it's affordable.
100%.
These retirees or these people with families?
Both.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah, so in comparison, as a whole, Vermont is affordable compared to what you're seeing in the cities, was my point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Queechee was probably one of the first planned unit developments in the state of Vermont back in the 1960s. And it really took hold in the 70s. And there's 1,700 properties there. They have 2 championship golf courses. They've got beautiful clubhouse. They call it a lake, Queechee Lakes, but it's a big pond. But they've got, racket sports, and they have their own little ski area. And you pay what they call a quala fee. Everybody that's in that, it's the Queechee Lakes Landlord Association fee, and you pay it's 70, I think it's
79.
7,900 a year, and it covers everything. So it's an interesting development, and it's 2 hours from downtown Boston.
How often are you seeing people buying properties that are just super old and they really just want it for the land? They're raising the house and putting up something else.
Yeah, not a lot of those. Not a lot of those. I mean, maybe to come, but we're not seeing a lot of those.
Is that because you've got strict zoning? So if I go up there and I find one of these old farmhouses, if I consult with my realtor, he's going to say you're going to be limited on what you can do if you knock down this farmhouse. Or are they pretty relaxed? I just met with planning and zoning this morning, and we looked at a potential subdivision of 30 acres into 9 lots. And that's jarring for people in the community. They're like, oh my gosh, there goes the neighborhood. We're going to lose our forests. You have pretty tight zoning, though, to prevent that.
We have really tight zoning, but it doesn't prevent people from renovating and enlarging their home as long as they meet all their criteria. Queechee's got a little bit of they have an oversight of, certain colors, and you can't take so many trees down and that type of thing. But yeah, they're, as long as you're within the zoning guidelines, we want people to keep up properties. We don't want to have properties disintegrate in front of our eyes.
Is construction considered expensive there?
Very expensive. We're still coming off a pandemic construction pricing, and I see the cost per square foot coming down in the next couple of years, just because there's all these guys that had work out 2 years and now getting caught up, and they've got to get a little more competitive. Materials have come down a little bit. But yeah, it is expensive.
I am struck when I look at Airbnb, and I went to Airbnb, and I went to go look at the Vermont area, and I'm struck by all these tiny houses. I mean, truly tiny houses, like this one, a tree house. So is that a reflection of what you're saying, the expense of building, or is that just is that a fad? I mean, what's going on with the tiny houses in Vermont?
That one's called tiny home right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a cabin in Hartford.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a trend.
$115 a night. You can't even turn around to change your mind in that building.
I know. No, we've done shows on tiny houses,
Yes.
but I've never seen such a concentration of them as in Vermont, where you ostensibly have all this forest and all this land, and people can spread out. What's with all the tiny homes?
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you scroll down, you'll find some decent homes. I don't know where. Yeah, you're right in the Woodstock area too. That's interesting.
I think just on your original question of, construction, our biggest thing when people ask about remodel or building new is that a good contractor is going to be 3-4 years out from maybe even starting your project. We have, it's taken 4 or 5 tries for me to get a painter out to a listing next week. I'm trying to get on because we need more laborers. Everyone's so far behind. So that's our biggest, just buyer beware if that's your plan. This is not
Wow.
gonna be an
So if
immediate
someone
thing.
has a construction company, there's opportunity there.
There's
1,000.
actually an opportunity for new people to come in, really. I mean, we would welcome them.
Mhm.
Wow, 3 years to get a house done. I think in contrast to that, I think the expectation here is when a client comes and says, "What will it take?" I think we say you could be in your new home in a year. I think it'll take you 8 weeks to get through the permitting process. And I've know builders who say they can build a house in 9 months, but probably more like 12. So when you say 3 years to get a house done, that's
Wow.
got to be a big drag on your ability to sell some of these undeveloped lots when somebody finds out that they've really got to be planning 3 years out.
For sure.
What are we
So,
going to do about that? We got to write the mayor. We got to make something happen.
We could talk to
well,
Scott
I've
Hobbs.
been telling everyone in my Boston office, I just, whose husbands are in construction, come on up, we need you. And actually one of my listings in Queechee, her husband was in the business and he was able to get a whole team from a Boston crew. And that was the only way we were able to get things done on the timeline that fit our goals.
And in a pinch, you can just put up your workers in tiny houses because you got plenty of those.
True.
Indeed.
So what's the future of Vermont? Is Vermont happy to stay rural, sleepy, recreation industry centered and college centered, or are we going to start to see a transformation? I already see it in the corporatizing of the resorts. Okemo, Killington, all now owned by public companies, which are putting a lot of development pressure on, which has got to put pressure on, building schools and everything else, or providing more restaurants, more infrastructure. Are we going to see a transformation of Vermont over the next 10 years? Or is Vermont really constraining that growth, constraining that development, keep it the way it is? Where do you see the market going in Vermont?
It's going to stay right where you've described. I think that probably the only major development we're going to see throughout the state of Vermont is some type of affordable housing. There's a lot of funds that are going to be coming available. There's a big push because our workforce housing is really weak. I don't think that you're going to see any. There's not going to be any Queechee Lakes projects. You might see in the resort markets. You will definitely see development. You'll see either condo, single-family residence projects. Killington actually now has new owners, and they're going to be spending tons of money promoting and adding new housing units. So on the resort areas, yes, we're going to see more housing, but outside of that, that's our draw, is that we're sleepy, we're beautiful, no billboards.
But if the Killington corporations are allowed to build 100, say, market rate $1 million condos, I would imagine that the need for affordable housing means that the state says if you build 100, you've got to set aside 20 as affordable, or 10. We're seeing that happening here in Connecticut. I've got to imagine it's happening as well up there.
That's happening. They cannot get a permit without a plan for workforce housing. They cannot get a permit without it.
And they're building as fast as they can up there.
Well, they haven't really, building has been slow. I would say in the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to see in the Okemo, Killington, and Stowe markets, we're going to see some really increased development. Killington's actually going to develop a whole village, which is going to include housing and commercial, and that's going to be right at the base of Killington Mountain.
So Killington in the middle of the state, Okemo also plenty of development. Not seeing so much up in the north, Stowe, Smuggler's Notch, J Peak, right?
Yeah, you're going to see it in Stowe. Stowe is very, very active real estate. Smugglers, you're probably not going to see much. They just they have a really defined market there. And Sugarbush, probably you're going to see a little bit of development in Sugarbush, but really your markets are going to be Stowe, Killington, Okemo, and maybe Mount Snow down in the south.
What about Stratton? I hear about Stratton all the time, and people were saying, we bought a little place in Stratton, that type of thing.
Stratton's a great mountain. They've really, they've done a good job with the development there. And I don't know if they're really planning too much more growth as far as economies. They've pretty much maxed out their land force there. So, but they've done it tastefully. It's high-end markets. Probably average price there is $1 million, $1.5 million for a condo. 2.5 million for a single family residence. It's
the most luxury of these ski resorts is what? Killington?
Well, luxury
Stowe.
would definitely be Stowe.
Mm-hmm.
And
but
Stratton.
It's too far to get to for a lot of people. That's what makes it a little bit more exclusive, right?
And Stratton, you said.
Yeah, and Stratton. Stratton's very, very luxury. They've really spent a lot of money on chairlifts that have bubbles and heated seats, and they've got beautiful lodges, and their real estate is very high end. Stowe has done the same thing. They're also, I think they're at $220 to $240 for a day pass.
So wow. So if someone doesn't want to go to Aspen or to Vail or any of that stuff in the West, on the East Coast, the places to go would be like Stratton and Stowe.
Stratton, Stowe. It all depends on the skier too. The Killington market, it's the largest ski area. So you've got, and they're 100% open right now. They've got, varied terrain. They've got higher end skier terrain. And all the other ski areas have that too. But every group that's looking to go on a ski trip is looking for something a little different. Okemo is a real family mountain, so if you bring your family there, they've got all kinds of daycare
and ski wise, outside of Vermont, who are you competing with? I mean, is it Lake Placid? Is it Montreal, Mont Tremblant, or something like that? Or
yeah, I don't think we're competing with anybody that close. I mean, we're obviously competing with the West, but Mont Tremblant's 5 hours away from us here, so that's a long ways away.
Yeah.
Lake Placid, I mean, maybe a little bit, but I don't think we're losing people to go to Lake Placid.
And it's still primarily the big season is winter. And so if I were mapping this on a graph, would you say your winter market is double that of your summer market?
No.
I don't think so. I think the stats are that foliage season, which is, and they're not big spenders. They're more visual people coming to see our foliage, but they are still, renting hotel rooms and enjoying the restaurants. I would say that the overall traffic, it's busier during foliage than it is during ski season.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's a longer period.
Judging by when you pull up Killington, Stowe, and Stratton, and you look at the images, I would say 2/3 of all the images are snow images, ski-oriented images. Not that many, when I look at this Killington Mountain Village, not seeing that much on foliage, a little bit, but mostly it's about the skiing. Yeah. So that's what made me think that it still dominates the conversation is, how's the snow?
I think they go different places during the different seasons. Like for foliage, you're going to come to Woodstock or some of the smaller towns that are more quaint, and you get that local experience. You look at the covered bridges, that's a huge draw. But you're going specifically to ski, you're going to go to Killington.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. And it's a different person.
Okay. So I thought that Killington was working on changing it to be a ski brand to a recreation brand, year-round recreation brand. And what you're saying is that each brand, Woodstock, is about rustic, rural Vermont, and Killington is still about active resort, active ski resort. Got it.
And I think that, the draw to Woodstock, and we are obviously biased growing up there, but you are so central. Our little mountain is called Saskadina 6. That's where I grew up skiing. But you can be at Okemo or Killington, 30, 35 minutes if you want that, larger resort experience.
I'm cheap. If I want to go ski today at Saskadina 6 with the locals, what's a ski pass going to cost me at Saskadina 6?
Today,
110, I think.
no, today it's $59.
Yes.
And the weekend it's going to be $79.
Yeah.
But if you go online the night before, you can get it for like $10 cheaper.
Yeah. But you get to drive right to the base, put on your boots, walk up the stairs, and you're on the lift. No parking issues, no shuttles, no crowds, just us.
See, I love that. And you know what? My 21-year-old son, he's listening and he's trying to figure out, how to get the most skiing in during his spring break. And so come on up, Max, all your friends. Saskadina 6, you just heard it. Best kept secret in Vermont. Until now.
In America, actually.
Well, this has been a phenomenal show. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank you both so much.
This has been
Thank you
really
for
great.
having us.
Well, thank you for having us on. I really appreciate it. You guys are doing a great job.
I want to thank our sponsor, Grace Farms. I love Grace Farms, and they're doing just such a phenomenal job. They've got the Philharmonic they just hosted. They've got UN conferences there all the time. So just want to thank the folks at Grace Farms for all the great work that they do at Grace Farms. Show the picture again. Remember, go check out robertocabrera.com and you're going to find all this good math about what interest rates are doing to the New York City market. And as you guys know, in Vermont, when New York is going well, the rest of us do well. So people have to make money in New York and Boston for our real estate markets to be supported. So
Exactly.
go do good work, Roberto.
I'm trying.
But thank you so much, Mia.
Yes,
Thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Norm. This
Very
has been
much.
phenomenal.
Oh, you're welcome. You guys have a
Thank
great day.
Take care,
Tell
guys.
all your friends, like it, and comment on it, and spread the good word. We're having the national real estate conversation right here, Boroughs and Burbs. Thank you all.
We will.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Bye.